One WNBA team in the midst of a playoff push loses their best player to a season-ending injury. What will the Golden State Valkyries do? Let's discuss. And welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to No Cap Space WBB. It is Andrew Hobner here with you. Happy to be with you. Happy you are here with us on this lovely Friday. We got some huge news coming out of the WNBA right now. This from the Golden State Valkyries about 8 minutes ago. We'll open it and zoom it a little bit more so everybody can see, whether you're watching on your phone or listening on your computer. Golden State Valkyries forward Kayla Thornton, who suffered an injury to her right knee earlier this week in practice, underwent a successful surgery earlier today in San Francisco. Thornton will be out for the remainder of the 2025 WNBA season and will begin the rehabilitation process immediately, wishing KT a speedy recovery. I don't think I need to tell everybody that this is objectively a bummer. Kayla Thornton was on the path to running away with most improved player this year. If we go to her statistics and her game log, you can actually see just the degree of everything in terms of improvement, of minutes. This is a career high for her in points by a substantial margin. The next highest she had was 10.4 points per game with Dallas. She was averaging 14 this year. Most rebounds that she's clocked per game at any point in her career. 7 rebounds a game this year. That outpaces the next best in 2022 by 1.1 a game. Better on steals, limiting her turnovers. You know, the shooting percentages were a little bit down relative, but she was a vital piece in making sure that this Golden State team got on the right foot this season. And even though they're 2 games under 500, it feels like the vibes in Valhalla are so good that she was a major part of that. And you can kind of go in and see what Golden State is going to be missing with her as we kind of go through the season. She had a bit of a funky July from a shooting standpoint. I mean, all of her averages in May and June, it was a lot of 45, 50% shooting nights for her. This was probably one of the best games of the year. 29 points and 6 boards against Chicago, 22-12 against Seattle, 22-11 against Las Vegas, 18-11 against LA. And it started to taper off a bit, but even in the win against the Fever before the All-Star break, 18-8, 10-9 in the next game against Vegas, 15-11-5 in the All-Star game, albeit they played absolutely no defense whatsoever, was a good little consolation as well. But this is tough because there isn't, as we understand, a lot of there's not a lot of depth with this Golden State team as a high end, right? I think Kayla Thornton, you could argue, is a player that maybe isn't an all WNBA type of player, but is an all-star caliber player. I don't know how many all-stars are. They have good rotational pieces, but a player that's a bona fide all-star in the way that KT was this year, I don't know if you have more of that on the roster. The person that I think is going to really benefit from this in a substantial way, South Carolina's Letitia Amihere, who I'm really excited about personally. I think there was a lot of push for her at the start of the season in preseason camp to get the nod, to be back on this team and not get cut. She was cut before Chen was cut, and that caused a lot of issue around what people thought, was deserved versus not deserved. And the irony at the end of all of this is both of them are still on the roster now. So it's Caitlin Chen and LA on this team. Monique Billings is here, Temi, Tiff Hayes, Carla Late. But I really am interested in seeing what the choice is. And if you decide you're going to run LA out at the 3, or if you're going to put Cecilia Zandalicini in as the starter here. Now, Zandalicini came back from Eurobasket a little bit later in July. She was out for over a month playing with Team Italy, my Azzurri. She did fantastic. My Italians, we are on the come up. The homeland is crushing it in the women's basketball space right now. A little bit of a mixed bag from her in terms of shooting percentages. We haven't seen much in the time since the All-Star game has ended. But also, some of that is Golden State has, and played a lot since we've gotten back from the All-Star break. I have a feeling we're going to get Zandalicini at the 3 here. And I would be really surprised if the starting 5 that was rolled out, that, kind of has been for a lot of this season. We'll go back to the Sparks game here. KT, Janelle Salon, who is at the 4, Temi Fagbenle at the 5, and then Tiff Hayes and Veronica Burton in the backcourt, and Zandalicini effectively playing a sixth woman role here. I think you're probably going to get Zandalicini jumping into KT's spot at the 5, and then Letitia, I wouldn't say going from 9 minutes to 25 overnight, but I do think you're going to start to get maybe Kate Martin type minutes for her, where it's like 15 or 16. You go a little bit smaller because Letitia was taller than Kayla anyway, but not as good of a scorer. So you're going to need maybe a shooter like a Kate Martin in here, Carla Late, who can kind of run a little hot and cold. I am very curious to see what this means for the most improved player race. If we go into some of the statistics for that, my argument, frankly, even past KT, was that this should be Azurá Stevens at the front of this award ladder right now. But I think there are a lot of really talented players that can lay a claim to the most improved player race so far this year, right? And it's a little reductive to do this in just like a straight points per game standpoint, but I'm picking this up just so people can kind of see like full statistics, and then I'll break them out per player. To me, I think some of the biggest contenders here, obviously, Alicia Gray, Brittany Sykes is in here, Kayla Thornton, as we mentioned, Azurá Stevens, and probably the fifth. I think it's the Angel Reese of it all is actually kind of interesting as a most improved player candidate. I might do a separate video on that because I actually think that there is a legitimate case there, even though I'm not a huge fan of higher draft picks most improved players. JJ Redick had a whole thing on that in the NBA, is like a first round player who starts a little slow ends up becoming MIP because they finally play into their draft position. Angel was drafted 7th, so I'm not sure if there's like the same type of argument to be made there. But if we were to go in here and look at, Brittany Sykes, for instance, you can see within the stats, it's very similar to Kayla Thornton's, where this year, obviously, she's eating more than she's ever eaten at the line. I mean, the double up on free throws is legitimately crazy. Her highest free throws attempted per game was 3.8. She's at 7.5 free throws per game now, even though some of her actual shooting percentages are down relative to what she usually does. But I do like the fact that Brittany Sykes' assist numbers are up as well as the scoring. I think she really ends up in the conversation for most improved. Alicia Gray is more maybe like that Cade Cunningham NBA analogy, where it's like, you're good and you've been an all-star. Like, she was an all-star in 2023. Obviously, the numbers have substantially improved. The shooting has improved. I think for me, like the fact that she is shooting as well as she has this year, I mean, she's not super far off, being a 40% three-point shooter this season. She's at 39.3. She could creep back over 45% shooting, and she really is the engine of this Atlanta team. So I think Alicia Gray is a bit of a funky case for MIP, but I think she's in the mix for it. As we mentioned with Kayla Thornton, I think Kayla Thornton had a great piece of this. To me, her and Azurá were the front runners of this prior to this injury that was announced just a few minutes ago. She's a starter for the first time really since 2022. And every single number and every single metric is up, even though the scoring numbers are down. Azurá Stevens, to me, I think still has a legitimate case here as well. As you can see, major improvements across the board in points, in rebounds, in assists, in steals and blocks. She is shooting. This is actually preposterous. She's shooting 50% from the field this year and 41.7 from 3. And what's amazing about the field goal percentage is she's shooting 10 shots a game. 4.5 of those are coming from 3. And so that 50% is not just eating at the rim. Like, she is really shooting the ball well in general. And then to go back to the Valkyries, Veronica Burton, I also think, has a legitimate case here as a starter. She might be MIP from just a pure breakout perspective. Going from a bench role to being a starter, numbers are doubled, points are orders of magnitude better, rebounds and assists orders of magnitude better, shooting is a little bit improved, and although slightly down from Connecticut last year, the numbers are up if you kind of average it out in terms of how much more she is shooting. Her free throws are also pretty solid this year as well. So with Kayla out of the lineup and out for the rest of the season, I think this becomes a really compelling most improved player race if it wasn't already. I think Kayla would have gotten the nod just because it feels like she was somebody that was so forward facing and so out front that it would have been really tough to say that she went from a bench player to effectively a franchise centerpiece, albeit for the year, because I think the Valks are going to load up in this free agency period. But for you to be the person that gets this franchise off in its first year on the right foot, that feels like it's going to be, an MIP case. But now we have Azare, we have VB, we have Sykes, we have Gray. There's a whole lot more you can kind of choose from. Letitia Amahir is now a player to watch immediately in this Golden State lineup, as is Cecilia, I guess, Zandalicini. And it opens up a question of who becomes kind of the main centerpiece of this Golden State Valkyries team right now. Janelle Salon, the 6'2" French forward, is very good, but I have questions about, can she be the person to kind of lead teams forward as a centerpiece? I think it's going to be Veronica Burton's team going forward, and that might bolster an MIP case even further, especially if Golden State continues to make a push in the WNBA playoff picture, where they still are just on the outside looking in. I think they are 9th right now in the league standings, 5th within the Western Conference. And so there is still plenty of ground to make up. It's going to be harder now without KT, but Natalie Nakase, the head coach, has shown us that she has been able to do less or more with less, and might be somebody that it could be plug and play. You find someone great, and that greatness could come from a former South Carolina Gamecock. We got more coming. We got a watch guide, a new video series that is dropping in just a couple hours here on YouTube. If you like The Breaker, let us know. Like, share, subscribe, do all the stuff that's needed, and we will see you all very, very soon here on No Cap.